Mike DeCourcy is with us, so there's more sunshine for you right there. Welcome back, Remax Realty, of course. Cheryl Sizemore, always a great sponsor for us. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Mike DeCourcy with me, as I said. And Mike, over the weekend, Indiana had its senior day festivities. Of course, Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal both go through that, but both announced they're coming back. I at the same time, so I'm like, okay. So I kept asking people, I'm like, so do they get to do this again next year and get a whole nother frame and all of that stuff? I'm like, if you know you're coming back, why go through that? If you know, I mean, yes, you are a senior, and I guess you deserve that, but you're going to be a COVID senior next year. So, but I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what I've never been in that position to go through graduation twice. I did graduate early from college, but they didn't give me a cap and gown in December and then give me another one in June or May or whatever it was. I just went through the May one. So I'm not sure exactly why that was the case. But I don't. Hey, the better part is, like, if you're those guys, you go through the senior day ceremony, even though you know you're coming back. You got to win the game, right? You got to win the game. You can't do that and then not win. So they did.
Yeah, well, you'll be backstage going, just pull that. I'm not going to go through that ceremony. Yes. I'll wait till next year.
Or like hold off on the announcement until like June or whatever, and let everybody forget that you just went through senior day. But Anthony Leal, I pointed out on Beyond, was the key to the victory in the end. He scored 0 points in 24 minutes, I think it was. But on Tyson Walker's drive, everybody in the arena, everybody in green and white, everybody in red and white, or excuse me, crimson and green, everybody knew that Tyson Walker was taking that last shot. And so Anthony Leal carried AJ Hogard right to the handoff and then said, see ya, AJ. You can do whatever. He's not passing the ball, and I'm hanging here and making his shot as tough as possible, along with I think it was Xavier who was guarding the ball at the time. And his double team forced a really difficult shot, and certainly a shot that would not be in Tyson Walker's bag, really. He got too deep into the baseline, didn't get the look that he normally would get. He's lethal on that little 10-footer with the angle, with the option to bank. He's lethal on that, but having to go to the baseline, which is exactly what Anthony pushed him toward. It was a great little play in the game that saved their victory. So like I said, if you're going to do that, got to win, and they did.
Absolutely. Great defense by Anthony Leal. The whole time, whenever he was in, I was watching him. He was working his butt off on defense. That's probably why he couldn't score. He was working really hard on defending. And you got to give credit to Tyson Walker. He went off 30 points in that game. A great job by him. Michigan State did a good job coming back from 16 points down, but then they had 2 7-point leads, couldn't hold it as Indiana came back. So great credit to both teams. They worked hard to get that job done, and Indiana's able to pull that out. Of course, afterwards, you had the senior day festivities, but the thing that came out of that most that really stuck with Indiana fans was Mike Woodson and his insistence on how well he has done his job, and just an assortment of things that people are like scratching their head going, dude, are you watching the same thing that we're watching? Because we're not seeing that. And I have to agree, and it goes down through a number of things, through recruiting. He has not been engaged in recruiting the bigger names in this state. He's barely gone to see, and has gone to see them only recently. And they're not going to get those guys. I'm going to tell you straight up. Some of them, hell, I've seen them as many times as he has, and I'm just going when I can. I don't have a private jet that takes me to the same places that I did go that I know they took a private jet to. And one of which was a damn hour and a half away, but yet you got to take a private jet. So
not that you're bitter that you had to drive.
Well, no, they could have asked, Mike. They could have asked. But I'm like, if you had that at your disposal, I'm like, there is no excuse for you not making every effort to get to see these kids.
I will say that there was a story that I wanted to do once. I think it was around. It was around. It was after Carolina got Marvin Williams to come from Seattle to play on what became a national championship team in 2005. And I heard stories about how Roy Williams would finish a practice, hop on a private plane, fly to Seattle to see Marvin Williams, and then fly back and get back whenever, I guess probably by dawn the next day back to Chapel Hill. And I wanted to do an article about that. And I worked with the Carolina people for a long time to try to get to be on one of those trips. And I think after a time, I think that Roy saw where the story was going, which was basically to present him as the hardest working man in show business. And maybe that wouldn't reflect so well on the people working for him. I think that's why he ultimately bailed on the opportunity to do it, because Roy is a great guy and wants to present his program and the people that work in the best light. But that was who he was. I mean, he was willing to do that because that's what it was required to be the best he could be. And that was the responsibility of coaching Carolina, was that you had to get the Marvin Williams. That was your job, was to get Marvin Williams and Tyler Hansbrough and Ty Lawson and Ellington. That was your job. And he did the job as well as anyone who's ever done that particular job at Carolina. And he doesn't like to hear me say that. I've said it at a couple of occasions, written it. He doesn't want to hear that he did a better job than Dean Smith, but he did. He won 3 championships in basically 20 years. Dean was there longer and won 2 and had the best players a lot of times and didn't win it in smaller tournaments. That didn't require as many victories necessarily to win it all. I think Roy was Carolina's greatest coach. And part of that was the willingness to do that, to get on that plane and fly to Seattle. I'm not, I don't, other than what you said, I don't have knowledge of what is happening at IU. I do know that they have done a reasonably good job of getting big name players in there. Mbako, Jalen Hood-Schifino, they've done a reasonably good job with that.
And I think the name that should be thanked more than anyone for those guys, right there, Pete Yonkman, the president of Cook Incorporated, because if it wasn't for Cook, they wouldn't be getting those guys from Montverde. They wouldn't even had a shot at Liam McNeely, who just decommitted the day after it was announced that Mike Woodson would be returning.
Right. I understand that. I understand that. And but for me, where Mike missed this year, I'm not going to use the word failed, it's too strong. They won 18 games. But where he missed this year, and I've spoken to this on a number of occasions, was not being adequately prepared for the possible absence of Xavier Johnson. There was no backup plan. And in today's college basketball, here's the thing. You can have 2 point guards and you can play them both. If you have 2 point guards who are among your 5 best players, you can play them both. And if you have 2 point guards and one of them isn't among your 5 best players, then that player can get 20 minutes a game by subbing for either the starter, Xavier Johnson, or the starting shooting guard, whoever you happen to decide to deploy at that position, depending on how you want to set up. In this case, most of the year is Trey Galloway. there's 20 minutes right there without even blinking. 10 off of Xavier, 10 off of Trey. So you can get that guy minutes if you get that guy. And they didn't get that guy. And Xavier missed 2/3 of the season. And when he's played, they were very good. They weren't great, but they were very good. They won the last 5 games in which Xavier played. You know what their record was, Jim? 5-0 in the last 5 games Xavier Johnson played. That's the difference that having a capable point guard made with a lineup that included Trey Galloway and Mackenzie Mbako, Jalen Hood, Malik Renew, and Khalil Ware. That they were good enough, 2 to 4, to win games in this Big Ten.
Yep.
But they weren't good enough at 1 because 1 wasn't there. And he did not plan adequately for that. And this Indiana team paid for that. That's where the problem was for me. It's too important a position. It's like having 1 quarterback on a college football team. You got 1 quarterback. That guy gets a concussion because somebody hits him too high. What do? And you lose. And that's what happened.